Welcome to How Preschool Teachers Do It.
This is Alison Kentos. I am an early childhood educator.
And this is Cindy Tarabush. I am an early childhood consultant.
This podcast is for parents and early childhood professionals.
Let our experience and research-based knowledge become your guide. Happy Monday, preschool peeps.
Happy Monday.
And here we are, still in our little Zoom boxes on YouTube or on your podcast provider. If you're listening, just listening to the audio. We're back and we're here and we're not going anywhere fast.
Yeah.
But we are seeing a lot of rapid changes that are taking place now because so many schools are releasing their plans for what they're going to do with the upcoming school year. And there's been a lot of guidance having to do with the early years in childcare and those plans. Alison and I were chatting and we started to talk about the issues now with the fact that preschools that used to have open door policies so that families could come in at any time and see what goes on at any time now can't have those open door policies because families can't just hang out in the classrooms because of COVID-19. And schools that didn't have that sort of policy, maybe because they were in a public school in the early childhood years, but they would have parents visit all the time to feel a part of the school community. That can't happen anymore either. Non-essential visitors are mostly not allowed. So we started to talk about, what does this mean that these policies where families could come a lot or come anytime can't happen anymore? What does that mean? Why did those policies exist? Why were there open door policies for childcare and visitors encouraged in other settings like public schools? And now that it's gone, what should families know to do?
Yeah. I mean, my school was never open door because it's public school, but for security reasons. But I always loved inviting the families in, to read or to come or like to present or just to visit. Like, here you go. Come on in and see what we're doing. Be a part of this. Like, be a partner with us. Yeah. And to partner with them, I feel like being there and inviting them is a big part of that. Even in the beginning of school, usually before the first day of school, we would have a meet and greet so you could meet all the parents and they can meet the teacher and they could see the room and the kids can see the room and they could get used to that. That's not happening anymore. So it's like,
it can, the kids can see the room virtually. If you go in and you video the room and you send them video, there are ways that we can sort of do that in that introduction virtually. I know some schools who are doing meet the teacher virtually on purpose so that the kids can get on software, see their teacher's face without a mask before they're with that person with the mask on all the time. So that's one way people are kind of going, okay, let's do the introductions actually virtually before we open the doors to the building. But that still doesn't solve the problem that families can't come into your classroom. And that's a problem. You've worked in childcare, Alison, where there were open door policies in the past. And I've worked in typical preschool settings where we were licensed and therefore had to have an open door policy. And those policies existed for a reason. Those policies existed so that a family can drop by any time and see what happens where they're leaving their most precious thing, which is their children. They should, they should have the ability to know what's happening in the place where their children are spending so much time with, let's face it, virtual strangers. Especially the younger the child is, the less the child can report home to the families about things that may happen. And I'm not saying that every place is horrible. They're not. Parents need the security of knowing I've picked a good place. And one way to provide people with that was to allow them to come in at any time.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think that was always important before COVID. And I think it's even more important to know what's going on in there now. So you can know that they're following sanitation schedules, distancing, wearing the masks, or whatever the rules are in your state, that they're following that. So to see that without this open door policy is going to be very hard. You can't just drop it. I imagine even drop off and pick up is different now. It's probably like, meet me at the front door. Here's your child.
It is. A lot of them are.
Yeah, so you can't even go in during that, just for that brief 2 seconds to drop your child off. So there's a lot you're not seeing now. And you're right, how are these parents going to feel comfortable knowing they chose the right
And
spot?
yet there are things I've seen. I've gone by places or seen videos of places where the children are outside with their teachers in their little groups, their static or pod groups where they're not supposed to mix with other groups. But I've seen teachers or teacher assistants wearing their masks under their chin like a chin strap instead of over their mouths and noses when they're supposed to be wearing it when they're around the children. And they're outside where anybody can see. So it always makes me wonder what's happening inside.
Right. I witnessed that today because I was parked across the street from school, and I saw the kids outside, and I saw they were sharing toys, they were sharing balls, there was no distancing. The teacher had a shield on, I believe, but no mask underneath. So I mean,
they're supposed to have a mask with the face shield. They're supposed to have
both, right? Mm-hmm. So I mean, and these children were all sharing equipment, sharing balls, sharing everything, and it was just like, wait, that's happening outside where I could see it on a main street, So what's happening inside?
So my understanding is that in some places, it depends where you were. In some places, if the children are staying within their classroom group, in their static group that doesn't change, that they can share something like a ball, but it has to be disinfected before the next group comes out.
Okay. All right.
So it's possible. The question is, did you see staff disinfecting those items between the groups?
Yeah.
Which you did not, apparently.
I did not. I watched them go inside, and all those balls went right. Now, I could be wrong. She put all the balls back in the bag. There was like 10 balls. She put them all back in the bag, and maybe she's going to go inside and disinfect them, or they have like a bin or something, like a tub maybe that they're going in. I don't know. But I mean, she did bring them inside, so the next group's not going to get them, hopefully. I don't know.
The question is, how can we advise families to advocate for their right to get glimpses inside? Now, I'm not saying you should walk inside. You should not walk inside. That puts everybody at risk for COVID-19. But we are living in the age of technology, folks. And I'm about to say something that I never thought I would recommend ever, because I was always completely and totally against it. But now I can see a purpose for it. And that's cameras in the classroom and systems that allow parents to log in to see what's happening in the classroom at any moment. I was always 100% against those, because I feel like when people log in and see what's happening out of context, that a lot of judgments can be made. I also felt like, families, you don't want people just logging into your house to see what's happening at random moments. Right. We need to get a bigger picture, right?
Yeah. But
I've always been against it.
Yeah. I think this opens up the door for a lot of questions. Like if I was a parent and I saw today at what I saw at that school, I would be calling the director and say, hey, this is what I just witnessed outside while I was sitting in the parking lot. I need to know that these things are happening. I think it at least opens. So yeah, it might be taken out of context. I have no idea what happened to those balls of those kids after they went inside, but at least opens it where I could be like, now I can ask these questions and keep them on their feet here, like on their toes, and be like, I'm on you. Like I saw that, and I want to make sure that you're following the right protocols. You know what I mean? You can start having conversations with these directors and these teachers. Be like, this is what I saw. I'm not judging, but I need to know what the procedure is here when it comes to
what's the regulation,
the soccer balls on the playground. Yeah.
What's the policy? What is the state saying?
Yeah.
And I think, as somebody who used to be a director, who again was very much against putting cameras in my classroom.
I have an issue with the privacy for
I have an issue with it. I do. Yet, if I were to say to my staff, listen, there's no open door policy now. So we have to give families a way to be able to virtually be here whenever they want. We're going to put these cameras in. You better adhere to all of the health and safety measures having to do with COVID-19, because they could be looking anytime. That's not such a bad conversation, folks.
Right.
It's another incentive to make sure you're doing and I'm not saying, I want to just say again, I'm not saying that early childhood professionals are going out of their way to do what's wrong. They're not.
No, they're not.
Families need the security of knowing that when I can't be with my child all the time, the places I'm depending on to follow health and safety protocols are doing that. So maybe one way is this thing I've always been against, which is the apps where parents can log into the classroom on an app and see what's happening. And if that's no good, another proposal may be this. Maybe there should be videos taken in classrooms of what's happening, but you have to get permission for all this. You have to get permission from families for their children to be on camera. It's a complicated issue.
It's a very complicated issue, because I know, like, that's part of the paperwork in childcare is the photo release, right? Yeah. So you could take videos and try not to have those children that haven't been released, but then if they're constantly on camera, I don't know. There's a lot of
maybe it's just if you have cameras. I mean, people already have this. Centers already have these cameras.
Centers have this.
Maybe their policy is you need to know that we have these cameras. Here's why. And if you're not comfortable with that, your kid can't come here. And that must be how they operate.
That might be, yeah.
Right. That must be how
because
they
I know
operate.
There's some childcare centers that's one of their big, like, promotional things. It's like, hey, we have cameras in the room and you can log on at any time while you're at work and watch it. It's like, and parents love it. They sign up.
I'll tell you what, they look pretty smart right now. Right now, they're looking pretty smart for having those cameras. Because the open door policy, the lack of open door policy doesn't matter in those centers, or lack of visitors doesn't matter in those centers that already have the cameras where parents can log in and watch. You know, another thing is there are schools, particularly public schools, that will be working on hybrid programs where there'll be some children who are remote while other children are in school. And really they should have some amount of live streaming from the actual classroom, and give access to that live stream to people whose children are in that classroom so that they can see, oh yeah, this is how it's going. Okay.
How it's going. Yeah. Yeah. I know in my district, they are planning to do the live stream. I don't, at first I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be on camera all the time. And I didn't, I had the whole, like, privacy issue for the kids.
It's a good thing we've done YouTube.
I know. I'm used to it now.
Yeah.
But at first I was like, that made me nervous. Now I'm like, hey, that might not be so bad. That actually might be a really good way for these parents and these children to get more comfortable, you know? So now I'm okay with it. I hope a lot of other public schools have the capability to do that. I know it's been a struggle to figure that out for our district, because that's a lot of equipment and technology, and teachers have to be trained on it. It's just another facet that needs to be all worked out. But I think that's a really good idea to get the children in the classroom even when they're home, and for the parents to see this is how Miss Allison runs her classroom when we're not there. So when my child is there on their days, it must be a good place. Look, she's doing all these things. I mean, they get to see things even though they're, you know what I mean? So, like, I think it'll make them more confident to send their child to school.
I think, we still also want families to be involved. Like, you had visitors, you had families involved. So you need the equipment for them to be able to, like, virtually join the class, to still read their books, to still participate in some way from a distance would be great. And allowing families to, I don't know, Skype in or Zoom in and read the books to the kids that way even gives them a way to not only participate, but to, again, be a part of what's happening and to kind of see what's happening. I think it's in settings, we need to be thinking outside the box in that arena of open door policies are not healthy, visitors are not healthy yet. So, those things were very important. What do we do?
Yes. Because it's good to partner with the parents, and, like, I feel like if we totally take that away, then it's like, how are we going to do this? Like, that partnership is so important for the child. So if you take that away because they can't come in the classroom, you've got to figure out a different way to do it, because that's how important it is. Like,
one of the great gifts of the people who were doing remote learning with these very young children are the partnerships that they had to develop with their families to make it work. And I can tell you that I know many teachers who have told me that they have developed relationships with the families, unprecedented relationships with the families, better and deeper than they ever have in the past and probably will ever have in the future, because they've had to work cooperatively to facilitate the children's learning.
And you saw, oh gosh, I'm like all over the place. Sorry, guys. You saw a glimpse of their home that you don't normally see. And they saw a glimpse of your home that they don't normally see. So already you were like, you saw more of each other than you normally would, or sometimes even didn't want to, you know? So like, and it gave you a bond, I feel like, going through what we went through starting March 13th or whatever. I feel like it really did give you a bond, and you're like, okay, here we are, you're in my house. And it was kind of nice in a way. Like, now I totally understand the teachers who are like, oh no, we do home visits before school starts, because I totally understand that. Before that, I was like, oh no, I don't know if that's a good idea. Now I'm like, no, I get it. Now I get it. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's nice to see that part of a child's life, you know, like
so why would we want to let those partnerships go? And I understand that for COVID-19, you have to stop them at the door and be like, okay, we'll take your child from here. I understand that.
Yes.
Still, we have to figure out a way to make them a part of what's happening in the classroom. And folks, they have a right to glimpse in there. They really do. We have to figure out how they can get glimpses in there using the technology. I also, you know, Alison and I saw things that we saw when we were outside. Like, we happened to be outside of places or driving by places where you can see classes outside. If your child is attending a place and you can see the movement indoors, outdoors, the playground, go a little early one day maybe and see what's happening, because if they're not following the protocols that they have set forth, when they're moving about, going in and out, and when they're on the playground, then you do need to question what's happening inside the building. But be clear about the protocols, because like I said, some places have protocols where it's okay to use those balls if it's just your group, but then you're supposed to disinfect them. You know, some places have protocols where the children can be running around together outside without masks. It really depends where you are, whether masks are required. From one state to another, the talk, and I can tell you because I've been on all the sessions in the states that I work with, in one state, the children are going to be very much encouraged to wear masks. In the next state over, they don't have to wear masks. So be clear what the protocol is. Your child's setting should be giving you in writing very detailed and clear protocols for how they're ensuring the health and safety of the children and the staff and the families during this crisis. And then it is partially people who are feeling nervous about it or worried that they're going to follow the protocols. They do have to ensure you somehow that this is happening. Yeah.
Yeah. And I encourage parents to question that and have a discussion and figure out if this is what you want to do for your child, because only you can make that decision, you know, and you go into it with your child in mind. So that's different for every family, and that's okay.
And people are making their individual decisions. I know people who are like, the kids are going for as much as they can be there. I know people who are like, no way, I'm hiring, we're doing nanny share, or we're doing family childcare instead of the larger setting that my child used to go to, or everybody's making their individual decision. But within those decisions, we need to make our settings still somehow accessible. If we could suddenly shift to online learning, we also can shift to accessible settings so that families feel comfortable with what's happening inside. They have every right to know and see it and feel comfortable.
Yeah, and that shift might make the difference in someone's decision. You know, they might say, hey, you know what? As long as I have some sort of way to see in, or there's a live stream, or there's something, I will send my child. But since there's not, I'm not going to. You know, it might be the make or break for some of these. Like, the more you give the families, especially the more information and more that you give them, the better they are equipped to make their decision. So, you know.
Yeah. So families, you're going to have to advocate for yourselves.
Yes.
You really are. You're going to have to just say, listen, I need to feel comfortable with what's happening in there. I can't just walk in at any time anymore, which means you have to provide me a way with knowing what's happening inside. How are you going to do that? And that really should be a question that people are asking all settings, but especially when your children are so young that they can't come home and tell you things that happened.
Yeah.
Older kids can come home and say, they're not keeping our group separate.
Right.
Then families have a clue, but young kids, they don't know. They don't understand, and they don't know.
Mm-hmm. They don't know.
And especially the babies, the infants and young toddlers, they can't express to you what's happening. And on a good day, that was nerve-wracking for families, but they were able to come in, infant rooms, they were able to come in at any time to be with their baby, and that might not be the case anymore. So that has to be given a lot of thought.
That's going to be really hard for parents of infants, right? Because like when I worked in childcare, the parents of infants would come in all the time. They would come on their lunch breaks just to say hi or to breastfeed or to, and all that's gone. That's got to be really hard.
I wonder if there are a lot of parents of infants who are making other arrangements, either with family or family child care providers or something. They're trying to make some other sort of arrangement.
How do you not, especially if you're like a breastfeeding mom, like how do you not go, if you had arranged that you were going to go during your breaks to go breastfeed your baby, like how, I imagine that there's a lot of other arrangements going on just because that's so hard.
Yeah.
For little babies. Yeah.
Okay. On that sad note.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. Yeah.
I know. On that sad note, again, advocate for yourselves.
Yeah.
Alison.
Oh, is it my turn?
Yeah. Tell the people what else we want them. Not only advocate for yourselves in regard to the setting where you have your children, what else do we need the people to do?
We need you to rate us 5 stars. That would be advocating for us. That would be awesome. Okay. Our 100th episode is coming up. And by coming up, I mean like it's a couple
really
weeks
actually
from now.
eventually
It's
come.
really,
I don't know.
It's eventually, by December, it'll be here. Well, originally we had 2 episodes a week and it was going to come really super fast. And now we've slowed down a little bit, but that's okay because that gives you a lot of time to figure out what you want to ask us and to write it to us on our website, howpreschoolteachersdoit.com, or on our Facebook, How Preschool Teachers Do It podcast. And you can write or comment us about anything at any time, whether it's a question for our 100th episode or not, or comment about this episode if you'd like us to respond to you about that. And did I cover everything this time, Cindy?
Yes.
Yay! I'm getting better.
Big A for you.
Getting better.
Wonderful.
A for effort.
Yes. Okay, for preschool peeps, we will catch you next time on the podcast.
All right. Bye, peeps.